Welcome back to my cosmic diary. Today I am welcoming a woman whose presence feels both devotional and deeply grounded. Roxanna is a Virgo rising, a natural keeper of sacred spaces with a double Pisces soul. She has a Pisces sun and a Pisces moon. She is carrying her dream world inside of her body. And her chart tells me a story of someone who is bridging the mystical and the material. With her sun in the 7th house, relationships and mirroring have been shaping her path. And with her Pisces in the 6th, she is living devotion through daily ritual, service, and embodied compassion. Roxanna is a Cancer survivor, an artist, a devotional mystic, and a keeper of sacred spaces. Her journey is one of resilience and reclaiming her magic through creativity and the unseen. Today we explore her big three, her dream world that has been guiding her, and her spiritual initiations. Roxana, where do you feel that your journey actually started?
Since I was a little girl, as far as I can remember, my parents always told me that I was always talking to angels when I was a little girl, and I was always fighting with them too. I was always telling Mom, Dad, and they're like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "This angel won't stop talking to me." And they would look around and they'd be like, "Oh, okay." And they always thought like, "Oh, maybe it's an imaginary friend." Like there was this time when I was playing paper airplane with my dad and we made a paper airplane and we were throwing it back and forth and he would hold a basket and I would try to throw the paper plane into the basket. And the paper airplane, I actually threw it a little too high and it was meant to go over his head. It looked clear. It was going to go over his head, but it looked like if almost somebody put their hand out and stopped it, and it stopped right above his head and then just fell straight down into the basket. And my dad like looked at me so like, What just happened?" And I was like, "That was the angel. He helped me." And in that moment they were like, "Okay, so something is happening here." And I would hear voices, and it was usually most of the time my name, just hearing my name and calling out like, "Yeah, mom." And my mom wasn't even there, or curtains would move, and my dream world was something interesting as well. I still remember my first two vivid dreams where I don't even remember how old I was, maybe like 6 around there, in the same world I was in, and the TV was in static, and I got up out of my bed and I walked out of my room and everything was just so dark and ominous. And I'm just a little girl exploring this house, and I walk into the kitchen, and I remember seeing this really giant dinosaur egg just sitting there on the table, up the entire space, and it was just sitting there on the table. And I remember thinking, like, oh, that looks like a Flintstone egg or something, because I used to watch the Flintstones a lot, and that's the only thing I could probably put my words into. And then I thought that was so weird, and I went walking and I went into my parents' room and they looked like they were dead, and it was really scary for me because I didn't understand what was happening in this dream to begin with, and it was just a blanket over them and then, like, little toe tags on them, and then I woke up immediately, and I actually the one and only time I've ever I slept walked in that moment, and I woke up
Were
in my
you?
parents' yeah, and even I was like, "How did I get here?" And my sister's like, "You slept walk. I saw you sleepwalk." And it never happened again after that, and I just remember that was weird, and it just really started building up, and my dad started noticing, and he then was trying to practice with me because he started stepping into the unseen world too, like, he was talking to the dead and cleansing houses, and in that same time period, he would take the cards from the Candyland game that I had, and those cards are just like little blocks of colors. And so he would take them and he'd like, guess what color I have in my hand. And he wouldn't show it to me, and I had to guess every time. And it was like every day we were practicing this. And yeah, it's so crazy thinking back to it. And even like in my crazy, angry teenager phase when I shut that world out. I even thought even more like, "That was so crazy that that happened. Did he
To
do
step
that to
away
me?"
from that.
Yeah, like, I was it's not real. That's not real. That's crazy. So I stepped away from it and shamed it in a way until this past couple years, I'd say, probably within the beginning of this cycle that we're in, which was 2016 when I started to step back into it again.
Just to move back to childhood, what age, more or less, were you that you remembered that very vivid dream and that you were sleepwalking? How old would you have been?
Well, I remember, actually didn't even say this, at 2, my grandfather died, and he loved me dearly. He was the one that stood my name and everything. I remember my parents telling me this, saying that we were at the funeral. This was not even in Florida where I currently live. This was back in my home place in Puerto Rico. I was telling my parents, "Look, look over there, over there." And they were like, "What?" And they're like, "Those there." And I was pointing at this very empty corner, like there was nothing there. And
I'm
so
sorry.
I believe at 2, even maybe even earlier, who knows, because children are so innocent and pure, but at 2 was the first sign, and then, like, the dream world and the angels was, like, 5, 6, 7, around there.
Wow, so 2 years, you were so young. And you remember it as well, or do you remember it from the stories?
I don't remember it, just the story of my parents always telling me that, and especially when they were slowly transitioning, like, they were kind of like, oh, pushing it off, like, "Oh, she's just a little girl," or something, but moving forward into life and stuff, they were like, "No, like, you've always had this special gift," and you would say these things, and sometimes you would wake out of nightmares and say some stuff, and it was always scary, but also at the same time, like, they knew, like, this is something not normal.
It's like not everyone has these experiences.
Yeah.
And and as little as you were, do you remember how it made you feel? Because you described pretty scary things to see as a 6-year-old. The fact that you walked into your parents' room and that they were dead on the bed for a 6-year-old, I can imagine that is so scary. How did you cope with that, being so young and having all these images and dreams and the angels?
It's hard to say now when you're an adult, right? Because it's like, "How did I feel?" But I know I wasn't too scared, to the point where maybe if I was too scared, it would have been a bigger deal in the sense of, like, to my parents and my family. It's always like, "Oh, sometimes things just happen for a reason." And it is what it is. I feel like maybe even part of that understanding more now about astrology and human design and stuff like that. In my human design, I am a non-emotional person, which is funny because I'm a double Pisces and double Pisces is so emotional. But at the same time, my rising is Virgo and it's very logical. So it almost is like when I created my blueprint, it was like the most perfect way of like, okay, I can in the right moments, I will feel deeply, and in the right moments, I will be logical. And when it comes to like the unseen world, there were moments that were scary, especially when I see spirits or ghosts or that feeling of like someone's watching me, especially in my like that preteen age, like that 10, 11, like when things start getting more hormonal, that's when I started feeling a little uneasy. But as a kid, to me, it was like how it is in my Pisces world. It's so interesting. It's so magical. Like I've since a young age, like magic has always been my thing. Magic and love. I love magic and I love love. When I leaned in, and even like my partner will say sometimes, he's like, "You live in a world of rainbow and butterflies." Yeah, I do, because it's what keeps me feeling sane and safe sometimes. But I know, trust me, I know things get dark. The unseen world now and when I felt like a kid always felt like my safe place to escape to.
The way you speak, I just see your Pisces lightening up. Because the exact words that you are mentioning, love and magic, is
Yeah.
basically what Pisces is standing for.
Yeah.
Pisces is universal, unconditional love that taps
Yeah.
into the ethereal world of magic. So in 2 words, you're saying Pisces.
Yeah.
Also, I can really, really understand what you mean with you're so emotional and you're so logical, because yes, you are Pisces, you are Virgo rising, but also your moon, your emotional world, your inner world is in the 6th house. And the 6th house is ruled by Virgo. So
Oh.
also to your moon is a flavor of Virgo. So it's almost as if your soul incarnated with, yes, we're gonna give her all the magic and all the like the unseen and all the emotions. But when it comes to it, she has the capability of turning all of that into logic and turning that all into practicality. And via that Virgo, like really grounding it into this world. So that's beautiful how you describe it, and you can see that in the chart. And you have been also really leaning into the language of human design, right? And you speak the language of astrology. But has there been a point, like in your childhood, that you noticed that you were stepping into not just the child that saw all the unseen, but really stepping into, like, I am now having the awareness and I'm registering that this is different than others? When did you really notice, like, oh, others don't see the things that I see? And how did you cope with that?
Yeah, I guess I always knew about my sign being Pisces. I always knew that when I was a little girl. I always found it fascinating. I always found the stars fascinating. And I always found like my birthday. I was always obsessed with my birthday because I was born on March 14 for Pi Day. Love that it usually was always on a spring break. And I love the stone aquamarine because the color is blue and it reminds me of water. And then when I found out I was a Pisces, I was like, even more sense because I had a pool in my first house. I was always swimming. I love water. I love baths. I love drinking water. Those things were started at a young age, but the rest of the other stuff didn't register until later on in my life. Even like the big three didn't come into me like way later on, like in my 20s or something. And then human design is something that I started 3 years ago. But as a kid and leaning in so heavily into my Pisces and everything, it made me more, escape more. And at 11, I was diagnosed with cancer, and it really kind of fortified my faith in the sense of in that moment, my parents were religious people once upon a time, and they were prime ministers. We had a prayers room. We were in the Catholic church, and I made rosaries, and we would go to these Bible camps and all this stuff. But then coming into the cancer diagnosis and stuff, like I want to even say before I was diagnosed, my dad slowly was coming across the whole like speaking to the dead stuff and going to people's houses and cleansing people's houses, and then hearing crazy stories about what would happen. Like there was this one time that he was cleansing a house and he came back with half his face paralyzed. And in that moment, I knew how powerful the unseen was. And that actually scared me a little because he was saying he was closing a portal and he saw a lot of red and a lot of blood, and his hand got stuck in a portal and something happened, and literally all that stuff that was on that side of the body, like his watch at the time beeper and his cell phone, all broke, and then half his face was paralyzed. So it scared me thinking that, okay, magic is cool, angels are cool, all this is cool and beautiful, but there's another side that I didn't know of. This darkness, this, that heavy entity kind of thing. And then when I was diagnosed with cancer, we kind of dived into it and even more in the sense of miracles and saints and prayer and all this stuff. And my faith was really tested. And I really held on to it for that year and with them. And then after that, when I led into the survivor guilt is when I started seeing more of that dark energy.
So going through the experience of being diagnosed with cancer, being on your healing journey, is when really the darkness would come in more? Is that how it went for
After
you?
the healing journey. So I was able to beat cancer within a year. I was diagnosed, I think, February. And then by October, I had my major surgery. And then October, I was given the great news that I was in remission and that the surgery was successful, all the chemo was successful, and I was able to live life again. And when I got back into the world, that was a year of my life gone, a year of my life away from my friends and families and that environment, everything. I did not feel like I was in the same mental state as all my friends that at that age, that 12, 13, all the girls were into boyfriends and all this stuff. So I went from being like all this like young magical self into this new place that I just had to fight for my life. And I was given a miracle and I was given a second chance. It kind of made me grow up a little bit, and I just didn't resonate with them and I didn't see the magic anymore. And then I was in this survivor guilt stage where it's like, well, I knew someone who was a kid, he was a baby. He was maybe a couple years old and he didn't make it. I knew another kid who was such a great person. He was called Captain Joe Brown. He was such a cool kid and he didn't make it. And it was just like, I even remember one day being there and someone died on that floor and all our doors had to be closed. So it was just like, in that moment, I was starting to see like half a year after the remission of healing and being cancer free. It was like the magic disappeared and now this dark energy is sitting here, and I started having nightmares of this red realm and running away and everything. And I didn't feel strong enough. And I did my best to shut it out, to delete it. I kept saying that word delete in my head a lot. And then moving into my older teenager years, like 19, 18, and it was a lot of escapism.
Yeah. And I can just only imagine being so young, having to carry everything that you did. The things that you saw is not something that kids of that age in general see. And even
Yeah.
grown-ups, like even going through that as a grown-up, that is so unimaginable. And you went through that when you were just 11 to 13. In the years that you are stepping into teenager years, you were dealing with really grown-up things. So I can only imagine what you describe as that the magic, the innocence of the child in 1 second was that it left you and that you had to
Yeah.
shut it off, basically everything. Maybe that is that logical part that said in order to protect yourself and to protect your inner world and being able to continue. And then you came to a point of 18 that you mentioned that you went into escapism. Did that mean the same as what you mentioned before, like going back into your magical world, or did that have a very different look at that time?
Very different look. It's like almost, I always like to think of when you see Pisces, right? It's two fish. It's a
Mm,
white fish and a dark fish. And I like to call myself sometimes like almost like a Gemini. Like I feel like I have two sides to myself, this loving side and this side that does not care. And like, I don't give a F kind of energy. And it's like I could be very ruthless. I can say the most vile things sometimes, and I'm destructive, and it's like very dark waters is what I always like to think of it. And it's funny when I say that because I also felt like I was drowning at the same time in those dark waters. So I was escaping in forms of like alcohol or drugs or partying. I would lie a lot. I would sneak out. I would try to find, I guess, like, I would also try to look for places like to make me feel alive. And so I have like 10 tattoos, and my first tattoo when I was 19, and it's a star with wings and it has a Roman numeral 14. So it means a lot to me. But all my tattoos was a form of escapism. How can I feel pain and know that I'm still, I don't know, existing? It's kind of weird to say it. And I've even done self-harm to like just to feel like I was so over heightened that I had to shut it down. But then when I shut it down so much, I had to do these crazy external things to make sure that I still felt something and that I wasn't completely shut out. And it's kind of like I explained this to somebody one time, like as a projector, you want to be seen. And my whole life, I wanted to be seen. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was hyperly seen and I did not want to be seen anymore because I was this broken child to people, or in school I was known as like the cancer chick or the crippled chick, and it felt very uncomfortable to be seen. And then to now transition to wanting to be seen, to now stepping into a new healed version to this day where it's like I'm okay if I'm not seen and I'm okay if I am seen at the same time.
Like you have no attachment to it. You are like
Yeah,
in
it
a zero neutrality. There's not above, below, there's just is.
yeah.
That's beautiful. That how you went through that journey of transformation to reach that, because everything that you are describing is so related to Pisces. When how you are describing your journey up until 11, you are in the high road of Pisces. You are in the magical. You are seeing the world as love and magic. Then you go through a
Yeah,
very
whitefish.
the whitefish, and then you go through that horrible experience and you come out of it with having also that you have seen the darkness literally and you went into the dark fish, and the
Yeah.
low road of Pisces is representing, like you are saying, escapism, but also illusions, creating realities. Like Pisces, how you are describing with the dark and the whitefish, how I see it is as well is those fish are swimming in different directions. So
Yeah.
you have one foot in this world, you have one foot in the other. It like Pisces is the universal truth because it's the last sign of the zodiac, and at the same time it's where duality exists. So you have all in one. And it is the union of the two fish, like what you are describing, as creating that neutrality point where you just accept as it is without having attachment. That's where the magic happens.
Yes.
So I'm so excited to hear, like, how did you find back that magic? Because you mentioned before, like, it was in 2016. So what happened that you went back into that point?
In 2016, I was in a job working for my mentor, and she's actually tied in with my new protector who came today. Honestly, me and her even talked about it. Every time when we're together, it's always meant to be. She hired a new person and we went out to lunch. I remember always thinking we're the same ethnicity, close in age, and we like the same things. It felt like a mirror of myself. She was a Cancer. And so it's like water on top of that. I was so drawn to her. My partner is a Cancer. And my grandmother, who passed away and who's my guardian right now, is a Cancer. I was just picking at her brain one day for lunch. She started talking about how sometimes things happen for a reason and, spirituality, some kind of bigger force out there. And I'm like, yeah, I believe that. I do believe that. Like, and, my childhood was about that. So I started, me and her would share like YouTube, but she would share more. It like brought me across somebody, it was an influencer named Ingrid, and she was talking about authenticity. And I remember watching that video and feeling so lit up and feeling like I didn't know then, but I know now I was wearing a mask. And in that moment, it's almost like I knew I was wearing a mask because my soul felt so like authenticity. This sounds so beautiful. Like you can be your own version and still be accepted. Like, what? I was so like I grabbed onto that concept and then grabbed onto this influencer and I followed her and I needed to know more. And she posted about a book called Brave Enough. And it had a lot of like life sayings and just like sayings about life and things and grief and emotions and how things sometimes are just meant to be and all this stuff. And I just remember reading it and being like, I need more. Like, I finally feel like this piece of me that has been needing this is starting to feel fulfilled. And I almost feel like my partner was looking at me like, you sound like a born again religious person. Cause I was so excited about it when I found out about mindfulness and all these things. And I'm just like, but you don't understand. Like, we are the creators of our own life. Like, we can do anything. And he was just like, that's mumbo jumbo. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I feel it in my soul. I feel it. And I think some big stuff was happening in 2016, 2017. So I don't remember too much, but it was literally the trickle effect, the butterfly effect, the snowball effect, because it literally took me down and I got a mindfulness certification and was wanting to learn more. That Virgo was like, I need to know more. And I also then realized that this journey was not all rainbows and butterflies and magic. There was going to be some hard times. And it was a lot of ups and downs when I was a kid and I came back from beating cancer, always feeling advanced. In the moment, I found myself again feeling advanced, and I was around my friends and family. I learned that projectors talk in a butterfly language, and we just know things, especially as me being a mental projector. I just know things, and I could just read something and know more about it by just knowing and talking. People just kept looking at me like I'm crazy, and I felt like a black sheep for a while, and I remember even drawing it too. Like I was stuck behind my eyes, like a person of myself behind my eyes and just kind of like hitting like the walls.
Like
It
frozen
wasn't
in
until
time almost.
yeah, like it was like I was just not moving forward, but I knew the answers, but I couldn't put the answers into full physical forms. And it was so frustrating for me to connect the two. It's like, I know, but I can't do it. And I also don't have the energy to do it. And I kick myself for not having the energy. And I've always been told that I'm lazy or procrastinate. Finding out that I'm a projector gave me that ultimate permission slip to be like, okay, it wasn't because I was being lazy or something like that. My dreams were slowly coming back more on live from that turning point till now. I had a lot of those red realm dreams and really vivid dreams. I like to say my dreams are a mirror of my soul's journey, showing me the way where I need to go and shining lights on shadows. It was scary. It was amazing and then scary and then amazing at the same time. It's like that meme that you'll see where it's like you're being spiritually enlightened and growth, but you're screaming at
Yeah,
the same time.
because it's going in and out.
He's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And you were mentioning the red realms. You had those dreams, I think, during your healing journey of cancer or right after you had those dreams. And then again, after you, like the
yeah.
moment that you were awakening to spirituality around 2016. Can you tell us more about what does it mean for you, or what did you learn from those dreams and how did it show up?
Yes, I know it's part of my human design, the dream world. And I think it used the word red realm or something like that because that's when I was like, oh my God, this makes sense. They started after I had cancer. And they continued to show up way more when I started my awakening. Roughly around 5 years ago is when they stopped, and I haven't had one since, knock on wood. But basically, those red realms, the best way I could describe it, like visually, is if you've seen the show Stranger Things and they go into the upside down world, that's the best way I could describe it. It literally looks like the same world that I'm in right now, except everything is red. It's like a shade of red. It's dark. It feels almost like hell. And there's nobody there. There's always nobody there. It's usually just me. It would take place mostly by a house, that neighborhood. I would see it in the red realm a lot. We'd always be outside of the house. One of them, I can remember being like, I'm walking out of the house and I'm looking up at the house and the doors are all closed. There's no one there. It's all dark. And I'm looking, all the houses are dark. There's no lights. And I'm running because I know something's coming after me. And I don't look back. I'm scared. I'm always scared and I'm always terrified and I'm always alone. And I'm running and I'm trying to hide. In this specific one, I got into a car and I'm like in the back seat, like on the floor, and I'm crouched down and I'm hiding because I know someone's coming for me. A door is sometimes involved in these red realms of me looking at a door and someone's trying to open the door. I'm scared that they're going to open the door and come in and get me. Those were usually how those red realm dreams work. It's either I'm outside and I'm running or I'm inside a home. It's always nighttime and I'm by myself and I'm always feeling scared and vulnerable and like someone's going to come and get me. And I always see the door trying to open, trying to come at me. And it wasn't until I started like the deep healing work of after becoming a mother. Me becoming a mother was really a part of my awakening. So to put it into timeline, that was in 2016, 2017 when I started. I didn't become pregnant until 2020 during the big pandemic. That was crazy in itself. Like those dreams were super vivid and scary. Then giving birth in 2021 and almost feeling like that energy of that red realm was consuming me. And I just remember feeling like a lot of anger, a lot of redness. And I just looked one day in the mirror and was just like, this, I can't live this life. I've always wanted to be a mother and now I have a son and I want to show him everything that I didn't get to have, like breaking the cycle and showing him the unseen for its good and its ugly and all these stuff, preparing him emotionally and all these things. And I can't be this if I'm being consumed and running away from my problems. Yeah.
He became your biggest motivation
Yeah.
to heal.
Yeah.
That's
The
beautiful.
ultimate light that he is.
I feel those words because that is
Yeah.
exactly what happened for me as well. Motherhood does open you in a way to seeing the world different. So you had those red realm dreams that were basically also a layer to your reality while you were asleep, right? Like
Yeah.
how you are describing it, you could almost say, but correct me if I'm wrong, as if you were looking into the fourth dimension during your sleep time, having another lens of perspective and another layer to your reality by becoming a mother. It's just beautiful how you work through that.
Yeah. And I still, actually, hearing you say that, I can recall the dream that I feel like ultimately ended it. And it wasn't a red realm dream. It was a dream where my son was taken. And it was another parallel dimension. It literally looked exactly like this world, but I was not in America. It felt almost like in the Europe side over there kind of thing, just assuming. But I just know I wasn't in America. And I remember being in the streets and looking around and I knew my son was missing. I knew my son was taken. And I remember looking at my partner and I'm like, "You go that way." And I remember running into like seeing that this building and I'm like, "I think he's in this building. I'm not sure." And I'm pulling up my phone and I'm tracking him. I see him and I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to track him." And my dad calls me. Of course, it's my dad. He's been my spiritual mentor for my current life and my past life. He calls me and he's like, "I know where he is. I'm following them." And I'm like, "Don't do that. They're going to catch you as well." And then when I said that, they caught him and it just kind of put me into another like, oh shit, kind of like I need to get a moving. And I saw both of them on my phone now, and it almost looked like they were getting into a rocket and they were going to be shot up into space. And I remember running into this building, and it looked almost like Matrix, like the movie Matrix, because there was a whole bunch of like people wearing the same clothes. They all looked the same, and they were walking around. They were like in science labs kind of coats, and they were walking around. And I was sneaking in, and at one point, the alarms were set off, and they're like, "Oh, someone's in here. There's an intruder." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I start running, and I'm trying to run, just like how I've always done in the past. I'm trying to run, I'm trying to hide, and I get into a room, and I realize it's a dead end. And I turn, and the main villain, I guess, this person comes into the room, and she's like, "I can't let you go." And I turned around in that moment, and in that moment, I was just like, "No, like, I'm not gonna let you take my son." And I started levitating and I just screamed at her, and it was almost like these sonic like booms were coming out of my throat. And I pushed her back and almost like glass was being shattered. She was being pushed back, and then time stopped. And when that time stopped, I realized what I was doing. And I was like, I have powers. And I woke up, and I
You
just remember thinking, "What just happened?" And it was almost like a soul retrieval kind of thing that was happening that I didn't know what was happening, and in that moment, I took my power back. I claimed my power, which, funny enough, finding out about my human design, I only have 2 defined centers, which is my third eye and my throat. And what was my power? It was me screaming.
you reclaimed your power in that
Yeah.
dream. You do your spiritual work through your dreams.
Yes.
And in that moment, that was the shift. And your son showed up basically as the anchor to fight for that really pushed you into remembering your own power and remembering your gifts, and that you mentally learned like, oh, we are the creators of our
Yeah.
reality, we can do anything. But then
Yeah.
you embodied it because in your dream you, and I think
Yeah.
that's when it lands in your body, because your son had to be there, as like it had to be so close and so important for you to really go through that barrier and to push literally that other reality out. That doesn't exist anymore. That's not my reality. So that's the shift. I can completely see how that shifted you into the embodied magical warrior. And like from learning into living, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Literally, like, that was the dream where I know I've always been a dreamer, and my dad actually wrote a dream book when I was younger too, when I was a kid, so me and him have always had conversations about dreams, and I've always been eager to decipher them, and I knew, like, I've even had a dream where I've predicted the future, and those always like, okay, if I predict the future, I know those are like, okay, good. But then all these other dreams, they're just symbols just trying to tell me something, I guess. But that dream literally was just like, okay, they're not just symbols. It's not just like my mind trying to understand what something's going on. There's something more to this. This is another dimension, another realm, and I can do soul retrieval. I'm healing. I am doing something so much more on a different level that's not understandable at the moment, but I know in the future, the more I dive into this and into this skill and gift and stuff, that it could be something on a higher magnitude.
It will come more and more online, and you will bring it with your Virgo into your reality. I'm sure that it will move from Pisces and to Virgo. And how aligned that Pisces and Virgo are actually opposite in the zodiac. So
Yeah.
you will pull it through. And
Yep.
and as you were speaking, I was thinking, because you mentioned a few times your father and how important the contract with your father is throughout your whole spiritual journey. How do you feel that those contracts support you through your journey? And what do you feel is actually that connection with your father?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I've always been a daddy's girl, so it was easy for me to have such a strong connection with him. And he likes to do arts and stuff like that. And he's a little odd like me. And I've always admire him, and he's the type of person that, when we came here to Florida, he was working at Burger King. That was his first job, but guess what? Now he has 2 masters. He's a psychologist. He has tons and tons of certifications and all that stuff. And he's a splenic projector, so he did that with very little energy. He's always the type of person that's digging for knowledge, digging for knowledge. And even as a psychologist and a man of science, he still will look into the unseen because there are things that science just cannot, grasp with the whole unseen thing. So he's always been someone that I look up to a lot, and he's more level-headed and calm. He's a Capricorn, so he's way more grounded to me, at least, like for my water self. My mother is a Aries, so she's a fire person. So sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, you're too hot right now. I need some earthiness." And my sister is a Taurus. So like I love my grounded people. So I'm always leaning to them. So my dad, naturally, I leaned into him, and I would tell him a lot of things that were going on. And it wasn't until I want to say 2023 when I learned about human design and learned more about astrology, and I actually descended into a more deeper healing journey, we started realizing that he is part of my past life. And me and him came to that realization, and me and him were both like, that feels right. Like that feels good in our soul. That really does resonate in our soul. Like he's gifted just like me as well. He can read minds, he can read energy, and he gets visions. He's very, very perceptive to these gifts. So again, this is why I'm so fascinated and why he was teaching me all these things. I had a vision because I was with a friend of mine at the time where I was trying to build something with her at a retreat. He was like, the three of us were together. And I found out that that girl that I've been working, that she became a really close friend that year for me, for my spiritual work. She was also part of my past life. And he's like, and I saw something in the ancient Egyptian kind of thing. So I feel like, we were part of this. And so then I started picking at that a little bit more and wanting to know more about this. And last year I learned more about soul contracts. And that girl that became my close friend, she said that she had a vision one time how she creates her life, and these she creates, like, she picks out people for these soul contracts and stuff. I did a past life regression, and I kept seeing like a man always there. And there was one that I saw him, and he was kind of like wearing like a cloak and stuff, and he was in the crowd, and I was being carried away. I was being marked as a witch, and he was just in the back kind of like looking sad, and he couldn't save me, and I was being ripped away from my son in that moment. I had a son in there. And so I felt like with that vision, in a way, kind of fell back to what my dream was, that dream that I had where they were both taken away. And so it just, that moment, and then having readings, it just kept confirming all these things, that he was this mentor in my life always in that kind of stuff, or a keeper, so to speak. And then he said, I believe this year, when I started talking more about my cancer journey online and more publicly, I wrote a book actually, and I gave it to my parents for them to read it. And I wrote it in a sense of like, it's like a child's book, and it had like, little fantasy characters. It was a deer, and she was sick, and her parents were there to help her, and she leaned on the elements and the spirits and the guides and received a miracle and all these things. So I wrote it with a light heart, but also expressing my story, my version of that story. And he told me, he's like, I have to be honest with you. I struggled. I did not want to read the story because time during cancer really struggled for me, because I felt like I should have done more. And then he said like he had kind of like this vision where back in the ancient like Egyptian time, he was teaching me like priestess stuff and all these things. And he wasn't supposed to teach me, but me being stubborn as I've always been, I was like, no, teach me. And then I got caught one day, and I was taken away and I was tortured, and his soul never forgave himself. So, in a sense, he kept coming back with me to redeem.
To repeat
And
that.
so when I got cancer, it was like, why is she being tortured again?
Mhm.
Just during the time when he was teaching me all these things and trying to practice the mind reading and all these things. So it was a big unfolding and a continuation of our relationship. And the past couple of years, I've been working on healing my childhood trauma before the cancer as well. And he's been always so open and honest with me, and always been a great role model in my life. And for then to me be born with my son was like another continuation of me through him, in a way. I know I have a sister, but we don't share same dads, but he will always love my sister like a dad. It was like that direct bloodline, and it's like that ancestral lineage that just kind of continued. We already know like our son is like my son, he's got something. I don't know what it is, but he's got something. He's just this pure light. And so now he has that. His smile is like, it just literally lights up people. Like everybody will see him and they just stop and they have to say hello to him because he just lights up.
his Jupiter is conjunct his sun in
Yes, yes,
astrology,
yes.
which makes him like walking into a room having that big
Magnet.
smile, like a
Yeah.
Sagittarius in disguise.
So it's just kind of a continuation. And again, my son feels like a part of that soul connection as well. And I guess that's what my dream worlds is showing. All that was taken away from me. Like, this is the lifetime that I feel truly like I can get it back and overcome those old obstacles and even saving my soul contracts. Not saving them, but fulfilling them, completing them, and making sure that I don't get me wrong, I would love to continue living more lives with them, but I hope in the sense that we've done our past life justice.
I am sure that we will still incarnate with the souls that we incarnate in this
Yes.
life, but hopefully within a higher dimension or within, yeah, without the wounds.
I sometimes still feel alone because a lot of the people that I did meet that are so wonderful and accept me and see me for who I am are not in the same city as me, but they really brought in a whole nother perspective, a whole nother dynamic into my life, and learning about that, it had a lot of hypnotherapy, breath work, which became my number one thing. I realized my body's true emotions in that moment. I realized that my right and my left were at war because of my right leg. My right leg is where I have my prosthetic bone and where I had cancer, and my right leg is my masculine. It's I don't use it too much because I'm so heavy in my feminine and the Pisces flow on my left side, and my left side literally carries me and everything. So my feminine and the masculine it was just not in the union. And in that moment, it just kind of came to me in clarity that it's just like my body has real emotions, and it made me so sad to feel that and to realize it truly is my ally and it's my temple. It's a sacred vessel for my soul to be here and accept it for what it is. And that was kind of like, that's the biggest arc of my whole services and my course and everything is trusting my body again, trusting her again, because there was a time in like 2022 that I almost did not trust my body. And even though I was on this awakening path, I still felt like I had a sick body. It's really coming back into my own true self and my going back to that authenticity to be that high vibration of frequency, because love is a high vibration. It's a very high frequency, but authenticity is higher than love. Then the womb, which is crazy to say, the womb holds so much for a woman. It holds so much, and you think you've healed things until you hit to the womb. There are things that you have not healed until you get there, and it's not just yours. It's your past generation, it's your mothers, your grandmothers, your great great grandmothers. It just helped so much for me understanding these components and going through my journey that I hope that other women, and not just women, maybe even more like children, really resonate with children as well. As somebody who went through childhood traumas, I want to be able to be that bridge of the unseen and to the reality, because when you bring the unseen into your space, and I know there's beliefs about it and stuff, so the unseen can look completely different to anyone and everyone, each to their own faith and belief. But when you bring into your faith and the unseen of it, magic really does happen when you look for it, even in the form of a prayer, and you follow through and you show up and you continue to show that gratitude to the unseen. It's just true. I can't even describe it because it's just one of those things that you have to see it for yourself. And I have a beautiful collab partner who can vouch for it, since I've been doing collab work with her and showing her about the unseen in Magic World. She even said, I did not know that there was this much magic out here, and I'm forever grateful for you. So that ultimately feels like my goal for people, and it not just in services like one-on-one talks or coaching or breath work or possible retreats in the future, but also within, like, I do readings and channel work, channel arts, where I take your energy and what you like and what your soul likes and put basically your soul with some magic on an art. And you're able to kind of just, I see your magic. So I'm putting it down so that you can see your own magic. I see all of your, and even you, Anke, like I see the magicalness of you, and just being that bridge is what I want to be and be able to show that and share that. Right now, it's super easy. Instagram, if you have Instagram, my tag is The Magical Warrior. It's just all one word, The Magical Warrior. And I have like a link on my bio there that takes you to a website as well, where you can look at all my services, including the channel art and reading. Or if you just simply want to like DM me and talk to me and talk about dreams or magic or rituals or sacred spaces, I'm always, always, always a safe space here and welcome any wild souls.
Before we close, I invite you to notice what stays with you from this conversation. That is where the real integration is happening. You can find Roxy and her work linked below. I will see you in the next one. Thank you for walking this path with me.